Well, thank you, Mitch, and my mom would be proud of you introducing me that way. I won't explain what a hokey is to you either, because I really don't know, because it isn't anything. It's just as you said, it's a word that seems to rhyme with other things, and so that's what it is. But it is a pleasure to be here. I wouldn't say, is this loud enough? I wouldn't say that I had the vision of my name, but I will say this. I bet you I could spell my name sooner than anybody my age. It's always been a name. It's very easy to spell, and it did come into its own in this world of telemarketing and everything else, right? So when you get junk mail or you get calls at home, what do you think the chances are that they ask, or they send it with your initials on it, or they send it, or the phone call asks for you that way? It doesn't. So it has become an incredible screening device. But really, the name comes from my mom, and when your mom does something, you don't change it. So she did the initials, so I left it that way and have lived with it ever since. But it works well when if you get in a position of CEO, because I always can introduce myself as CEA, the CEO. So it flows in that sense as well. As Mitch said, I did go to Virginia Tech, and I actually graduated from Virginia Tech. And I hope you all will be kinder to me than the last time I was here. I came over here a couple weeks ago, hoping to see my basketball team play and win, and you kicked our butts, you know, and that wasn't that pleasant. But I brought a friend, actually, of Mitch's, a former Maryland grad as well, to the game, and so I was very civil, and I was a very friendly loser at that game. But be nice to me. Let us win tonight, at least, in some respects. I'm going to talk a little bit. This is a great program you all put on, and I thought about what to talk about, and recognizing that obviously most of this audience is made up of people that are either presently or soon to be in job positions or looking for jobs and things like that. So I wanted to do something or talk about something that in my mind at least, were the kinds of things I would have liked to have known or better understood when I was in your shoes. So we're going to spend some time talking about that. Just so I get a feel for who's in the audience, I'm going to ask a couple questions. When I ask some questions, if you give quick responses, it'll help me stay on schedule. How many of you are undergraduates? Okay. How many of you are graduates? Not many graduates. How many of you are something else? Oh, the faculty, I guess, right? All these guys. Okay. How many of you are here voluntarily? 3 of you? Okay. Good. Thank you. But no, it does help me to get a profile. So mostly undergraduate, but some graduates, and I'm not sure the topic really makes that much difference whether you're graduate or undergraduate. So what I want to talk about, and what's my title really mean? Do you ever go through life, and we all have, so the answer to the question is yes, that you feel like things are upside down, that when you get to the point you really know something, it would have been nice to have known that back here when you could have really used it. I mean, we run into that all the time. You mostly, as it pertains to high school, you know, when you're 20, 22 years old, you say, gosh, I wish I knew when I was 14 what I know now, and I would have had a lot more fun. But really, you think about life, it's upside down. Even from an age standpoint, when you get to the point in time that you have enough money, enough time to go enjoy yourself, to take real vacations and everything else, you're too old to do it, right? When you have the time and the energy to do it, you don't have the money or the time. So, I mean, in lots of ways, life seems sometimes upside down. We're going to talk a little bit about that and how it affects your outlook on job. You know, and I would ask you, and just think about this question, how many in this room, truly, if you ask yourself the deep question, really know what you want to do? Really and truly know what you want to do? And how many of you really believe that whatever it is you're about to do is going to be the job that you retire in? And I suspect very few of you. So why not? If that in fact is the case, why don't you know what you want to do? And why don't you know the job you're going to perhaps retire in? Well, you know, first and foremost, is it something you really want to do? Is it aligned with your skills and your interests? And you never really know. It's hard to know that. You've come to college and you've made, I apologize for not at least putting my name up there. You've come to college, taken accounting or whatever you're taking, because somebody has helped program you in that direction, but you really don't know a lot about it. You don't have a lot of answers to those questions that led to this decision. So there's a lot of unknowns. And you should sit there today. I guarantee you, if you truly ask some deep questions like that of yourself, there still are many unknowns. You don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know what this degree really is going to prepare you to do. So basically, what I'm saying is, as you sit there, you really don't know what you want to do. You don't know where you're going. And you honestly don't know how you're going to get there. Now, I know that sounds unsettling, but it's true. And you probably got the professors cringing, saying, wait a minute. We've been teaching them, preparing them. We've got them all ready to go. And what I would suggest to you is what's happened to you is that you've been prepared, yes, but you've been prepared to start some journey. A journey that has uncharted directions, uncharted ways to it, but just started a journey. So they've gotten you kind of to the starting line of a race, but you're not really sure what that race is going to be or whether or not you're even in the right race. So you're prepared for something. But what I want to spend a few minutes doing is to kind of break apart this perfect bubble that we all think we're in, that we're prepared to do something great, and talk about the things, some of the myths that are out there that you will face, and then talk about, more importantly, the things that you can do that will really influence your track and your success. And I think it's critical for us to start with the myths, because there's so many myths that we're led to believe, either from school or from our parents and everything else, that I think it's first important for us to understand what those myths are so that we don't continue to build upon those and we build upon reality. So the first myth I want to do is this one. You can be anything you want to be. I mean, how many of you really believe you can be anything you want to be? Some of you. Okay, well, that's good. All right. All right. But you've heard that. I've used that. I've said that to people. My parents certainly told me things like that. But I would suggest to you that, unfortunately, this is false. And it's actually very false. You frequently, when you're in high school or in other things, people tell you, look to the left, look to the right, and two of you aren't going to be here next year at some point in the future. And that really becomes true in the world. I mean, when you get in the business world, you look to the left, look to the right. Some of you aren't going to stay on that path. My point of saying this really is a myth and it's not real, is that there are limitations on everything, on all of us. There are limitations on our capability. There are limitations on our potential. So we really can't all be anything we want to be. I'll use an example as an athlete, because I like to play sports and I was terrible at it, and because I'm slow and everything else. But just think about athletes. I don't care what sport it is. How important and valuable is speed? It's very valuable, right? All right, so let's say I said, I'll just blame it on me and put it to me, I want to be a great base stealer in baseball. There's no chance. I can't be that. There's a physical limitation that prevents me. I'm slow, and you can't teach speed. Well, in the business world and things you're doing, there are limitations we all face. So we really can't be anything we want to be. All we can do is achieve the best we can with our mental capacity and then attach other things to it to make it successful. There's a great book that I read not long ago that I encourage you to read, and I'm going to cite another example later in my remarks on it, called Outliers, The Story of Success. It's written by a guy named Malcolm Gladwell, and perhaps some of you have read it. But what that does, it does a great job with this myth. It talks about all the things that come into play and influence outcomes, many of which are beyond our control. And if you see that, you realize it, and you'll understand that the best thing you can do, the best you can hope for, you can't really be anything you want to be. What you can do, you can use your talent, use your talent to be prepared, you can certainly put forth the effort to do it, but all that does, it's just part of the overall equation. It doesn't complete the equation. A lot of other things come into play to determine what you're going to be and how successful you can be at that. So that's our first myth. The second one, and this is my most disappointing one, people are honest. I mean, I hate to say that this is a myth, right? I mean, we'd all like to be able to say people are honest. I mean, I'm going to just to illustrate this, a little simple survey. Raise your hand if you have never, ever exceeded the speed limit while driving? Are you telling the truth? Really? What's that? Well, I did. I mean, interestingly enough, I used that question one time at a group, another college group I was talking to, and it was a smaller group, and so you could really engage. You know, and I asked that question, not expecting anybody to raise their hand. And this person raised their hand, and they raised it really strong. I mean, they could tell they did it with conviction. And I thought they were just pulling my chain and saying, I said, no way, really? And so I proceeded to sit there and basically cross-examine the person and ask, because I didn't think it was possible. But that person actually had never exceeded. I said, you mean even when you get to one of these things that says 15 miles an hour, you didn't go 16, you know, that kind of stuff? And said, absolutely not. So I did get that. Let me ask another question along similar lines. How many, raise your hand if you've never fibbed or told a lie or done anything dishonest in your whole life? I got you on that one, right? You know, so what's the point of all that? I mean, well, at first it's important you didn't raise your hands because, you know, it would have destroyed the myth if everybody raised their hand, nobody was speeding. And if anybody raised their hand on the last one, you're in the wrong room. You got a higher calling. Because either you're either lying, or if that in fact is true, you belong somewhere else if you've never made a mistake or told a lie. But the point of this is not to, you know, overly dwell on, but all of us are flawed, right? People are not inherently honest. Everybody's not honest. In fact, all people, to a degree, have the flaw of dishonesty. And we actually live in a time, sadly, where almost nothing anymore would surprise us. I mean, think about the cycle we're just going through with the marquee frauds and other things that have been out there. The Madoffs, you know, the one that's in our face here lately is the MF Global situation. I'll use that as an example in a moment. But you take even the mortgage crisis, right? Just load it with fraud, including fraud by the borrowers themselves, where they go in and lie on their applications. They lie about their income. They lie about this. They lie about that. I mean, it becomes so commonplace through some of this last cycle we've gone through. And so it is unsettling, but the reality is, this is a myth. People are not inherently honest. All people, to some degree, are dishonest. And there's another book, and I'll make reference here, that I really read, and I think illustrates this in a very rapid track that's very good. It's kind of an R-rated book, so be careful. But I don't know, and some of you may have read this, The Wolf of Wall Street by Jordan Belfort. And he's a quick rise success story on Wall Street that violated all these things, made enormous amounts of money, and then crashed and burned. And it's a very good book, but it illustrates how much business gets transacted with elements of dishonesty in it. And it's very unsettling. So this truly is a myth that people are honest. The third myth, and this is one that might surprise you, but I'm adamant about this, that smartest people rise to the top. In other words, when you look at companies or organizations, you can take it to the bank that the smartest people are running it. Not true. And I'm not saying that smart people don't rise to the top and run organizations, but it's certainly not the rule. There are two problems with this. Is first of all, what's the definition of smart? And there's no real good definition of smart, because smart embodies a lot of things, in my opinion, beyond gray matter. So what is that definition? What really makes you smart and the smartest person to run something? And secondly, is really the inefficiency of the system here. The system enables and allows for upward mobility of lots of different walks of life of people that are not necessarily the best or the smartest or most capable people in the organization. And when you think about the definition of smart, a lot of times you think of people you know and around, man, that person's really brilliant. But that's the same person that has trouble crossing the street. You know, smart is a lot more complicated than just gray matter. A lot more goes into it to make it smart. You know, one example that I think recently that I would say destroys this myth, and I find it interesting because it's all kind of happened in, you know, the last few years. I don't know if any of you are aware of know the name John Corzine or MF Global, which has been in the news again today, by the way. And but John Corzine is, and I don't mean to pick on John Corzine because I apologize if somebody's in here is his buddy and everything else and a relative, and I'm not really picking. I'm just using it as an example because I think it's a great example of what destroys, or illustrates this myth. John Corzine was either the CEO or co-CEO of Goldman Sachs for a while. I forget exactly what his title was. Made a ton of money at what, at the time, arguably the best investment bank on Wall Street. Decided he's going to do good, and he became a U.S. Senator from New Jersey, went and served in the Senate. Then he decided he wanted to be governor in New Jersey, went and became governor in New Jersey, successfully went there and did that. And then most lately was at MF Global. And I happened to see this, this video clip recently that was actually from 3 years ago. And it was when the President Obama and his administration were putting together their economic team. And there was this presentation that actually Joe Biden was doing, and it was introducing John Corzine to a group because he was going to be a valuable, a critical member of the economic team of the president that was going to get this country out of its economic mess. And you've all seen Joe Biden, and when he gets on a roll, he gets emotional, and he's talking, and he's very emphatic and all. He was on one of his rolls, and he was going, here's John Corzine. He's going to lead us out of this economic mess. This is the smartest economic mind in the world. He's good at this. He's great at that. Blah, 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 on and on and on. And then this video overlays John Corzine from about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, whenever it was he was up on Capitol Hill testifying in front of his former peers as the CEO of MF Global, where he was sitting there saying, literally, I mean, it's hard to believe he went there to say this, but he did. Sitting there saying, I have no idea what happened to the $1.2 billion of customer money. And they'd ask him a question, and basically saying he was just pleading ignorance of everything. All right, so here's a guy, fabulous career, supposedly smartest guy in the world, led Goldman Sachs, senator, governor, CEO of this company. And then here he is in one of our most recent financial failures, probably fraud involved and everything else, basically pleading complete ignorance. So I ask you, smartest man in the room? I don't know. I doubt it. But yet that's somebody that was built up to be that way. So my point is there are many organizations and many opportunities where the smartest person in the room is not the one running organizations, which creates opportunities for you. The next myth I want to cite, and actually I love this one. Opportunities come with level playing field. Do you believe that? No way. There has never been and there never will be a level playing field. It doesn't exist. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's business, sports, the academic world, personal life. There's no such thing. I think it's one of the most overused, abused terms ever. This is where I'll cite an example from that book I referenced a minute ago, The Outliers. The first great story they go through in that is the story around Canadian hockey. Now, you don't have to know a lot about hockey. You know hockey is a big deal in Canada. It is the sport in Canada. They have for years produced great hockey players and continue to do that. But do you know, and this is really bizarre, but it's true, that unless you're born in January, February, or March, you have almost absolutely, very close to absolutely, no chance of ever making it as a professional hockey player in Canada. It's non-existent. I mean, there's been like a handful of people that did it. Now, so is that a level playing field? What is it about being born in May that makes you not be a good hockey player, right? Nothing. But you know what the system, the unlevel playing field, what it does? That's such an intense program in Canada that they start developing their hockey players very early in life. They start, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, that kind of thing. That becomes the junior hockey players that then get all the attention, get all the development. And at 6 years old, there's a big difference between a January birthday and a December birthday, right? I mean, you're almost 25%, 20% physically ahead of that other person. So the people that get selected for the program are the older children, the January, February, and March people, and all the other ones. Not that they're not eligible. They're eligible. They don't get selected. So if you go through, and he goes through goes through this in his book, there are no hockey players in Canada with birthdays after March. My point, I wanted to illustrate for you that it's not a level playing field, and that's a great example. I've known, I mean, this is, I hate to admit this, I have friends that have actually, even in high school, redshirted their children in the 8th grade or 9th grade. You'd say, well, for academic development, but they're homeschooled, and they're really doing it for athletic reasons. Again, they want to tilt the playing field, it's not level, to the advantage of their child. People do it all the time. So my point is, every situation you encounter, somebody's got an advantage. There's an advantage. Don't ever let yourself be tricked into believing the playing field is really level. It's not. Never has been, never will be. The next one, next myth I want to go through is that decisions are right and wrong, black and white. So you get a set of situations, you study it, get to the answer. It's an obvious answer. Yes, no, black, white, up, down. You know what? We're taught that that's a simplicity of decision making, but it rarely is. Very few decisions and very few situations can be that pure, that absolute. Just think about your own work, probably some of the cases you do in classes. You can be given a situation, a case study, right? And guess what you can do? You can take, I think you can, we used to do this, I think you can do this, you can take either side of that argument and intelligently present it, intelligently debate it, and if you're really good with your story and your communication, you can win that debate. The point is, the world is made up of gray, not black and white. So there rarely are absolute decisions, and this comes into very important play in the business world because you're confronted all the time with situations. Here's the information you have. Well, you know what? You're missing this piece, or you don't have enough of this piece, or this isn't that clear, or the rules are a little vague. You deal in a world of gray, not a world of black and white, which makes decision making much more difficult than we're often led to believe. And then the last myth I'm going to cover is that somehow you can differentiate yourself by being smart, having a good education, having clear goals, being committed, willing to put in the effort to get there. Here's why that's a myth. That applies to everybody in this room and almost everybody in every room like this across the country and across the world. So it's not that it's bad. None of that's bad. You certainly should do those things to prepare yourself to be successful, but it won't distinguish you. It won't differentiate you because that's kind of the price of entry. You know, that's the ante to get in the game, if you will, because everybody has it. All right, so those are all myths, and I go through those, and I could go through many more, but I know many of these were pounded in my head. My mom used to tell me, my dad used to tell me, you can do anything you want to be, and be anything, all that kind of stuff. The playing field is level. We've all heard these things. They're not true. All right, so what do? You give up? Oh my gosh, those things aren't true. World's coming to an end, and life is horrible. I don't think so. The point is, the world is complicated. It's doesn't follow some simple set of rules. And you might be sitting there saying, my gosh, I'm really lost now because I thought I was farther along than I am. You're probably wondering why you even attended college, why you're not getting the dream job you thought you were going to get. Much of what I have been taught doesn't really matter. The world's made up of crooks and losers who get to the top. What a messed up world I'm about to go in. I'm not nearly as prepared. Maybe I don't even want to go into it. That shouldn't be the case at all. But the point is, your starting point, all I'm suggesting, is different than perhaps you think it is. And we're going to help you. I'm going to try to help you make the most out of that starting point. But all these things you've learned and all these things you've done are just the price of entry. They prepared you to get in a race. Hopefully you choose the right race, you choose the right journey. But all of this is a journey, and you've only been prepared to start that journey. So the question you have is how and what can you do to break out of this kind of homogeneous pot that you're in, right? Now we're all the same again. We're all smart, we're all energetic, and that sort of thing. So how do you separate yourself, not immediately with your peers in this room, but over time as you go through your business experience. So there are tools and techniques that I believe, and there are many, but I'm going to go through several with you here this morning, or this afternoon, this evening, that I believe you can use that truly distinguish yourself and differentiate yourself. I mean, I refer to them, as things that build your brand. They build your business DNA. And the things I'm going to talk about are things you need to equip yourself with and make a part of everything you do. Things, it need to be things you do that you don't have to think about, that really separate you and go into building that personal brand. So there are many things that will do that. I'm going to go through quickly here with you 16. You asked me why I picked 16? I ran out of time. No. But at 16, I'm going to go through with you that I think are things that I encourage you to try to make part of your business DNA, part of your brand, what you're all about. All right, I've seen every one of these work in good and bad direction in my business career. And so they're very real. And some of these you'll say, I know that, or that's obvious. Well, guess what? Some of these things are obvious. But the real breakdown is people don't do them. They don't execute. They fail to follow them. It's not that they don't know that's a good idea. Let's go back to some of my myths, like honesty. Well, we know it's better to be honest, right? But guess what? Not everybody's honest. There's a reason they don't. So you have to execute. All right, the first one I'm going to cover with you is to maintain what I'd characterize as rock-solid integrity and ethics. I said we're not perfect. We all have made mistakes. We've all been dishonest. But this is critical. When you get in the business world, if anyone ever if you do anything where anyone questions your integrity, you're dead. You can't recover that. Once someone sees a streak of untrustworthiness in you or dishonesty in you, you don't oftentimes get a second chance to make that up. So this is a foundation you really have to work on. So it can be, obviously, if you don't do this, it's very negative. If you're good, if you're very trustworthy, people really are attracted to you. But this is foundational. I don't care what business you go into or what you do, this is foundational. And there certainly are many examples that you've probably had your case studies on where this isn't true. I mentioned, things like the Madoff situation, Enron, MF Global. How many of you studied things like stock option backdating in some of your class? I don't know. That was also kind of a disease that we had here in the 2000s. And these weren't your run-of-the-mill crooks out there doing this. These were respected companies, a lot of times respected CEOs with respected boards, and they're out there backdating their stock options to enrich themselves at the expense of shareholders and in some cases other employees. So I say this is important. You'll agree it's important, but guess what? A lot of people violate this, and you violate this one, and it's gone. You don't get it back. You don't get do-overs when you get a real black mark on integrity and trust. And I guarantee you, all of you have experienced this with even in your groups. And you'll get in groups, maybe teams, maybe case studies, maybe other circles you have. And you say, I really like Joe, but I really don't trust him or to do such and such because he's done something that violates or causes you to question his trustworthiness. And even though he might be a friend, you'll do things with him, you're not going to risk things with him. So this is very important. Don't ever let yourself lose this one and work very hard to be impeccable in this area. The next one, and this is a killer. Almost everybody that destroys themselves violates this one. Avoid self-inflicted wounds, if you will. Unforced errors. And this is real to everyone in this room. We live in a world that's very public, far more public than it's ever been. Don't be so naive as to think that what you do, what you say, I don't care what hour of the day it is not in the public domain. Almost everything now is in the public domain. So you take things, I'm fascinated as an observer with things like Facebook, for example, and how willing people are just to put all kinds of information about themselves, and oftentimes some questionable information on themselves out there on Facebook, things like that. You're all out in the public domain. When we were at Sallie Mae, one of our best collection, people that didn't want to pay us, student loans, they would not answer their phone, they'd hide from you and everything else. Guess where we'd find them? Facebook. They'd give out all their information. That's where we know they are when they moved and everything else. That sort of thing. It's amazing how those things work. Well, my point is there's no such thing as privacy. And, it's very easy to have an unforced error or self-inflicted wound. I cite a couple examples of things recently that are just living proof of this, and you sit there and ask yourself, why would somebody do this? Since we're in Washington area, I'll use one political one here. You ever hear the name of Anthony Weiner? What do you remember about him? Not that he was a great congressman, do you? Did he not incur a self-inflicted wound, an unforced error? He decided he was, I guess, invincible, could put all this stuff out there. Guess what? There's no such thing as privacy. Now he's ruined his career, and his life will never be the same. I saw another one the other day that just, is sad, but it's going to screw up the lives of 3 or 4 guys. There was an incident about 3 or 4 weeks ago in Afghanistan where 3 Marines were relieving themselves on some dead Taliban soldiers. And, it wasn't some mean-spirited sleuth that picked up on that. There were other buddies over there filming it on his, his cell phone, right, or whatever. Self-inflicted wounds, destroyed their lives, destroyed their careers. It happens all the time. This is one of the things that breaks down a lot. And you can think of many situations that you've seen, perhaps many situations that you experienced. You say, why did that person do that? It doesn't make any sense to me. Even had the Super Bowl kind of turned on a self-inflicted wound, unforced error. If you recall, if you watched it, the first touchdown the Giants scored. If you remember that, the Patriots actually forced a fumble, recovered a fumble on the play. Got overturned. Why? Unforced error. The Patriots decided they could play defense with 12 guys, and they got caught. So the play was overturned. The Giants got the ball back, scored a touchdown. They won that game by 4 points. So, unforced errors kill a lot of things. Be very careful about those. For some reason, my little screen's out here. But it's up there. All right. There you go. Had to touch it, huh? That's why we have technical people. It's above my pay grade to do that. No. The next one, and this one is something you just ought to incorporate, use it all the time. You got to listen to that too good to be true conscience that we all have, that strong moral compass. All of you, all of you have had situations where you said, oh man, I wished I'd listened to my gut. I wished I had reacted to it because something told you, something was telling you that wasn't right, or there was something that needed to be done there. We all had that. But oftentimes we let ourselves succumb to either deferral of a decision or to groupthink or peer pressure or other things, when in fact our conscience, our gut's telling us to do something else. And I would tell you that if something looks like it's too good to be true, it probably is. One of the most appalling examples for me, in my opinion, out of our mess that we've gone through the last few years, it's just loaded with great examples. That's what's fascinating about a big downturn. You've got to find some good in it, What do you learn from it? The Madoff situation I find fascinating, not because he was a crook and did all what he did, that's a given. The thing I find most fascinating about it is all these people who put a lot of money with that guy and realized these very high, consistent rates of return for long periods of time through economic cycles, right? So you got smart people, made a lot of money, been the smartest guy in the room, leading companies and all this kind of stuff. They put their money with this guy, and they sit there and watch it earn these double-digit returns in downturns and upturns every which way you go. You know what? You step back on that. This is too good to be true. How is it possible that he can do something that nobody else in the market can do? Why is that? It doesn't make sense. In fact, I had a great story. A friend of mine, who's no particular investment genius or anything, but he's a good guy. He actually, a month before the Madoff thing went down, had lunch with this guy, and my buddy didn't know anything about Madoff. But he had lunch with this guy, and he's saying, you know, but it's my friends getting these great rates of returns with this investment fund, and it was a Madoff investment fund. And he said, do you think I should put my money in it? And he started asking questions, and he proceeded to describe the consistency of return regardless of periods of time and how the attractive is the rate of return. He said, well, I don't know anything about it, but I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd understand what's under that hood a lot better than I do today before I put a dime of money in that fund. You got to understand, because that's too good to be true. The guy took the advice, didn't invest the money. He was going to invest $10 million in this fund a month before that thing went down. Saved him. Point is, all my buddy was using was this one. That's too good to be true. Don't let go of it until you know why it's too good to be true. Either prove it or disprove it, but don't do it if your gut's telling you that. It's a very important skill for you to have, and use it. You use it now, and you use it the rest of your life. The next one is, I'd say, is motherhood and apple pie, but it's violated all the time. You know, make great use, develop and use common sense. Common sense will lead you to the right answer many times. You can have all the textbook knowledge in the world, and I've seen people, they put it down, they put it in paper, they put it all together, and they come up and they reach an answer, and say, my God, why'd you reach that conclusion? It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. You've got to apply common sense in making decisions and making judgments. And I think the development of common sense, kind of like an acquired taste, you've got to develop it, you've got to work at it over time, but it's invaluable in your business life. The next one, and this one, I assure you, this is good advice. Avoid emotional decisions, or avoid making decisions when you have an emotional spike. It can be a good emotional spike or a bad emotional spike. Either way, it's bad. You'll make bad decisions. You've got to condition yourself, and oftentimes you're forced with decisions. You're confronted with decision making in an emotional state. Something bad has happened, something good has happened, whatever, and you're anxious to get to the finish line to make that decision. You've got to back away. Condition yourself to back away. You back away from that, let things settle down and calm down, make a rational decision using your common sense in calmer times. More often than not, when it's an emotional decision being made, it's being made because of a negative emotion, and you do something you live to regret. You burn a bridge, and you live with the consequences. Because usually when you burn a bridge, it either stays burnt and it stays down, or if it gets rebuilt, you rebuild it. Never make a decision, never make decisions in an emotional state. The next one, thrive and survive on change. Great leaders and people. We're in an era, I mean, change is constant, and it occurs at an accelerating pace. You better get comfortable with change. If you're not comfortable with change, you're not going to do well. And really, leaders very much embrace change, and they like to create change. They like change. They're very comfortable with it. You need to do that. But if you ask almost 100% of the adults in our country, are you comfortable with change? Almost everybody would say no. People don't like change. It's human nature not to like change rather than to like it. I'm just saying, if you're going to be successful in business, you've got to embrace change, you've got to lead change, you've got to grow comfortable with change, and you've got to do it. You've got to be like you were when you were a child. I had a friend that he actually lives in the area, wrote this business book actually called Lessons from the Sandbox. And what it is, it's basically saying, if we as business people could just go back and practice and embrace the principles that we had as children, we'd be far more effective. Because what do kids do? They ask questions, they learn, they ask why, they're constantly learning. They're not afraid of change. They encounter new things, many new things every day. That's what you need to become comfortable with in the business world as well. Change is here with us, and if you can become somebody comfortable with it and lead it, you can be very successful. The next one. Surround yourself with smarter people. You might say, well, this is obvious. I mean, of course you do that. Do you know what? You could go in almost any organization, and more often than not, the people in that organization, the people in areas of responsibility where they supervise, do just the opposite. It's more human nature to want to be the smartest person in the room than to have people in the room smarter than you are. It's comforting to be able to tell people things to do. It's comforting to be able to be in some ways superior in terms of the people in the room. It's much more human nature to do that than the opposite. Guess what happens when you do that? the organization, you dummy down yourself, and you dummy down the organization. You need to get comfortable with surrounding yourself with people that's smarter than you and encourage them and facilitate and enable them to unleash their creativity. Don't be uncomfortable with smarter people with you. Always feel good about it because it elevates everything. The performance of everyone, the performance of the business, and everything else. And be very comfortable with treating those people the right way. When something goes well, be quick to praise them. When something doesn't go well, be quick to accept responsibility yourself. I mean, those are the things that are very important. You surround yourself with smarter people, you enable them to do what they can do, and you'll grow, and the business or whatever else you're in will grow as well. The next one, very important thing to adapt from the get-go. Practice the attitude that the customer is right. Now, of course, the customer is not always right. Many times the customer is not right. But you need to make the customer feel like you care, that you're sensitive to them, and that you're willing to, that you show the attitude and spirit that you embrace their right. And that's whether it's internal customers or external customers. It doesn't really matter. You have to train yourself to walk in the shoes of the other person. There's an old saying that goes that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. It's very true. So you need to condition yourself to treat your customer, to first assume they're right, not assume they're wrong. Treat them, care for them, treat your customers well. It'll help you stay externally focused and you'll be more successful, and again, your business will be more successful. The next one is deploy the burden of truth, proof, and facts. Actually, I would call this one, I'd really relabel this, don't let yourself be a BSer. You can destroy people's confidence in you. You can destroy people's appetite to have you be with them, work with them, do things for them if you're a BSer. You need to learn that it's okay. It's okay to admit you don't know something. It's okay to admit you don't have the answer, but you'll go get it. You'll figure it out. It's okay to show some vulnerabilities like that. Not only is it okay, it's very important to do that. But believe it or not, many people, especially younger people starting out, if they're put in a situation, they feel like people expect them to know the answer. Somebody wouldn't ask you the question if they didn't think you knew the answer, so you've got to know the answer. And I have seen so many times, people destroy their credibility because they shoot from the hip, or they deal with situations without the facts, without the real evidence, without the information they need to draw that conclusion. And they quickly form an image and a reputation. This person's not to be relied upon to get to the right answer the right way. They're prone to take risks that we don't want to be taken because they're prone to reach conclusions that aren't supported, and that's dangerous. But it's tempting because, I remember when I was out of school, you feel like people expect you to know the answer. They don't. They expect you to know how to get to the answer, and they expect you to get to a good answer when you apply those kinds of things, including drawing in others as necessary to do that. The next one, very important. Learn to be humble. Now, self-confidence, healthy self-confidence is important, but it needs to have the umbrella of humility. And what's the flip side of this? And this is a death wish. Arrogance and greed, particularly when you sprinkle in a dose of one of our other things earlier that I said, that people are inherently dishonest. Arrogance, greed, and dishonesty is a disaster. It's important to be humble. Not that you can't have self-confidence, but arrogance is a disease you never want to catch. And if you look at many of the failures and things that have happened over the last few, if you look at the individuals involved, you'll see there's a lot of arrogance. I've worked with people that had unhealthy doses of arrogance, and I've watched bad things happen. So make sure you train yourself from the get-go to be humble. My next one, use mentors. Extremely important. Never be a lone ranger. You're not expected to be an island. If you try to be an island or a lone ranger, actually I shouldn't use lone ranger. That's such an old show. You all know what it is. All right. Don't do things by yourself. Surround yourself with inputs from other people. If you try to do things by yourself, you're going to be weak and you'll make mistakes. Mentors are extremely important, and you should have, in my opinion, you should have several. You know, for different purposes, maybe different experience levels, whatever, some at work, some outside of work. Always have mentors and use your mentors. They will guide you and help you, develop you, help you avoid mistakes and things like that. So always, it's a sign of strength, not weakness. Because that's another thing. We're kind of conditioned, oh gosh, if I ask somebody to be a mentor or to help me, then I must be weak. Quite the contrary. It's a sign of strength to ask for help, to want to learn from others, to seek inputs. And when you've got a tough decision to make, you know, I said decisions are always gray areas. They're never black and white. Mentors can be very effective. You can go and you can step back from it and you pause for a moment and go talk to them. Here's what I'm thinking. This is where I'm going with this. This is a conclusion. What do you think? Use mentors and very quickly mentor others. This is so important in the growth and development of people. The next one, I said earlier, one of the myths, you cannot be anything you want to be, all right? You can't. But with good discipline and focus, you can accomplish a lot more than perhaps you would start out thinking you could accomplish. So discipline, focus on things is extremely helpful to you in being successful. I read another book not long ago that was really, I think, insightful in this, and and maybe some of you read this. You probably think all I do is read, but actually I travel a lot and I have a Kindle. So what does that facilitate? Reading. So I love to read. And I read a book that was that to me portrayed the epitome of discipline and focus. And it's a book called Unbroken. It's actually by a local author here. It's the same person who wrote Seabiscuit, if you ever read that. But it's an incredible true story that is just beyond imagination of a World War II Navy pilot, of how he survived in the Pacific Ocean for, as I recall, 80 days or something like that on a little life raft with no food. And then proceeded to survive 2 more years in intense prison camps. I mean, it's just beyond comprehension. And I just encourage you, what it says and what it shows you is while you can't be anything you want to be or do anything you want to do, discipline and focus can allow you to do a lot more and accomplish a lot more than you realize. I mean, it really allows you to reach down and do things that might seem to be impossible. And I highly recommend that book. That's the last book I'm going to recommend, I promise. The next one, and I actually probably should have put this toward the front because I'm a huge believer in this. And this is a continuous work in process. But, you know, if you think about a business career and being successful in life, you go to high school, you go to college, and you get a lot of, you know, the training you need, academic training and everything else. But ultimately, I think the most critical skill that people don't get enough of, you get some of it, but don't get enough of, because it's a continuous journey to develop this skill, it's communication. And by communication, I don't mean being a great orator and standing up and speaking and that sort of thing. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not communication. Communication has a sender and a receiver. Good communicators listen a lot more than they talk. Human nature is to do just the opposite, to start talking, to give the answer, do whatever, do very little listening. Great communicators listen well, they understand the problem, they understand the issue, and then they're able to communicate and bring about solutions. There are not very many good communicators. This is one that's so obvious, but yet it's littered with examples of failures and you know, like I say, human nature is to do just the opposite, not to listen, but to talk. And if you look at what's going on today, how much of your ask yourself this, how much of your communicating do you do face-to-face with people, where you got real serious listening, sending, receiving going on? How much of it? How much of it occurs there versus with text messaging or tweeting or some other form of kind of one-directional so-called communication? You know, we've really gotten to where we do a lot of that. That's not a very good form of communication because you can't see the body language of the sender or the receiver. You can't even listen to them, right? Very poor form of communication. This is one that you've got to work on. This is where this separates winners and losers big time in the business world. There are so many people that have tremendous technical skills, brilliant minds, but they can't communicate. And they hit a wall. They can't go but so far. You've got to be able to communicate effectively. You know, in recent, we live in Washington, so you have to see this stuff whether you want to or not. You know, we got the Republican primaries going on, and I've caught a couple of real communication examples. And even though these are not so much sender receiver where they're one-on-one, but you got presidential candidates saying things. And I thought one of the most, even though I'm not a fan of his, and I'm certainly not a fan of the subject he was talking about, but I thought one of the most effective ones was when Newt Gingrich answered the question he had been expecting and would have given $1 million to get at that one debate, that South Carolina debate about about the wife thing, right? He acted appalled that he got the question, but he proceeded to articulate his message in a very, I thought, even though I don't agree with anything he's talking about, but he delivered his message in a very effective way that just destroyed the guy that was asking the question. And many say caused him to take an issue that should have caused him to lose the primary to put him in a position to win the thing. I mean, it makes no sense. But it was a very effective flow, communication flow at a point in time that had a big impact. So I would say it was a positive, on a negative subject, a positive communication. Then I've watched Mitt Romney, and he's gotten better about this, but they're two very obvious questions he's going to get. He's going to get questions about Bain Capital, because people ask about that. He's going to get questions about his taxes. Right? I mean, he knew that 6 years ago that he's going to get those questions. Certainly, but yet when he gets asked the question, it's like he's never heard of it, never thought of it, and he's sitting there mumbling and stumbling and everything else. And again, in that same South Carolina, the same thing. He looked bad, right? He's up there, he can't give a reasonable answer to his tax rate. He can't even explain why the business of Bain Capital and why it's a good thing and why he was successful with it. Instead, it's like he doesn't know. I mean, it really looks stupid. So poor communication there really harmed him. But that's the point. Communication is very powerful, and you can spend your lifetime doing something, and you can turn it, good or bad, on effective communication. I'll tell you, one example I want to cite is I was with Arthur Anderson, and I was with Arthur Anderson even after it went down, was destroyed. I stayed there to the end. But we had a trial, a criminal trial over the Enron matter in Texas, and I got to be our corporate representative there. It was a lot of fun. But the point, the trial, at the end of the day, we were convicted of impeding, destroying evidence to impede a government investigation. That's essentially what we got convicted of. And do you know that when it's all said and done, the piece of evidence that the jury relied upon, and this is awful, but it's true, was a one-sentence email sent by a very competent and honestly very cautious and very conservative internal attorney that sent an email to the engagement team on Enron to follow our document retention policies. Pretty straightforward. We actually had very good document retention policies. They were excellent. The prosecution convinced the jury that that email was code for go destroy evidence. Go destroy things. And they successfully convinced that jury that's what that meant. Now, I told you written communication is a terrible form of communication. You don't control the sender. You don't control the receiving of the message. Written communications live with you forever. Almost always, when they're used again, they're used to hurt you, not to help you. So be careful. But I can tell you, communication is extremely important. I don't care what job you're in, what you're doing. Don't underestimate the importance or value of this, and don't underestimate the significance that it can play in separating you in your career. Communication is critical. You don't learn it tomorrow. You don't learn it next week. You learn it continuously, but make yourself good at it. Next one, almost done here. Live off the means of the past, not the future. I've seen so many people, especially young people, screw themselves up over this. Because you're on a career. You're always making more next year than you made this year, and blah, blah, blah. You're going to be promoted next year. You got this. So many people get on this treadmill, on this trap, where they're living off of next year's income. Guess what? It doesn't happen. And then bad things happen. You get all messed up. You might have to switch jobs. You do this. In fact, if you look at many of the kind of white-collar frauds even that occur within companies, a lot of them occur because this is how they start. Somebody gets themselves in a bind financially, oftentimes because they start out living ahead of their means. They hit the wall. That raise they were expecting doesn't happen. Oh, my God, I don't have enough money. And somebody does something. They cut a corner and say, that's all right. I'll get it next year. I'll put it back. Nobody will ever know. Nobody will be harmed, that kind of thing. It happens. Make it a habit to live off of last year, not next year. And you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches and be more effective. And this next one, you ought to move this to the front of the line. This is the most, I think, the biggest mistake young people make, especially ambitious young people. They start out, they got in their training, they got their good job, they're all excited, they're gung-ho, and they put 100% of their effort into their career, their job. And they do it not for a month, they do it for a year, and now they've done it for 3 years, now it's 5 years. And now they wake up one day and they got no balance in their life. They've been neglecting their family, their friends, perhaps their faith, any number of things that they really are interested in, their hobbies, things that are important. Good leaders, successful people have to have life balance, reasonable life balance. It's hard to find somebody, certainly running companies or being responsible for large numbers of people, that don't do this. And the longer you wait to start it, the harder it gets. It's harder to start, it's hard to create a balance in your life after you've practiced it another way for 5 years or 6 years or 10 years. This causes people to hit the wall very quickly, particularly in a professional, when you're in a kind of professional space like you are. So my suggestion to you is that discipline yourself to have balance from the beginning. You don't have to have it to an extreme, but find ways to fit the important things in your life. Well, first of all, have important things in your life. Besides work, you should. Because if you're going to be a good leader, you've got to have other important things. That's part of how you grow. And to find space for those important things in your life from the get-go. And don't ever let that go. It's extremely important for you to do. And it's the biggest mistake I think young people make. And oftentimes they burn out or hit the wall or they get off track and things don't unfold like it could. All right. So then my last one is this. There's always one more. This is the catch-all. If all else fails, suck up to the boss. Now, we've all used that one, but at one time or another, I'm sure, in our lives or even in high school or college or whatever. But you can't build your career off of this one. It might get you over an event, one day to the next, but don't make this your foundation, if you will. But so that one's for fun. So what does all of this mean? What's the conclusion here? First of all, just being smart is not the ticket to the top. It requires many other skills, and most of these other skills are not technical skills. Equip yourself to develop these skills, and make these skills part of your business DNA, part of your personal brand. It's not hard to do, but you got to make them habits. If you make something a habit, you do it continuously, you do it with reflex, you do it without thinking, you do it. Make it part of your DNA and your habits. The next one, senior roles in companies are not always filled with the best people. The flip side of that is upward mobility for you, the ability to be successful in a company is wide open. You take your technical skills, your smarts, your academic achievements, and you combine. If you do the things, if you actually embed the things I talked about in it, you're going to be a rock star in whatever you do. Because most people, few people, almost no one does all of those things. If you make them part of your personal DNA, your personal brand, you will be very successful and certainly can climb the corporate ladder if that's what you want to do or anything else you want to do. And it's important to leverage for you to be outreaching, inclusive, involve others, to leverage the benefits, not just for you, but for the company and for everyone else. I don't know I love the story or the image of the butterfly effect. Of course, that can be good or bad. I don't know if you know what it is, but a butterfly flapping its wings, creates this wave of energy and eventually creates a tornado on the other side of the world, whatever. But the point is, little events, doing this or doing that, doesn't just create a result in that vacuum. It touches other people, it touches other things, it causes other events to happen. You just think of your own life. Just think how many situations you've had where this happened and that didn't happen. You said, oh, thank God that didn't happen, because if that happened, I wouldn't have liked that outcome. And that outcome would have set off all kinds of different other events. So you influence, doing things well or doing things wrong, influence a lot more than yourself. You create your own butterfly effect. And so when you turn your development into benefits, you have an impact far beyond your reach. And then the last thing here, the conclusion, is actually being successful in business. Despite the fact that I start with the myths, I said all these things you thought were true weren't true. It actually is a lot easier to be successful in business than you probably realize. But you've got to apply yourself, and you've got to apply yourself in a broader way, doing other things, like the things I talked about, if you're going to be really successful and separate yourself from the pack. If you do that, that path is a lot easier than you've probably been led to believe. So it is attainable, and I encourage you to do those things and to make these things happen. You're at a perfect point in your life. You've got no bad business habits. You have the opportunity to set your footprint now, to set your habits and do the things that you do. So with that, I thank you. I know I've run longer than you probably wanted me to, but I will take questions. Thank you. Questions? They want you to use the microphone here.
So you had a long and storied career, but probably not without some bumps in the road. Can you talk a little bit about resiliency and, when you face some adversity, not including the Virginia Tech time period, but beyond that? Yeah.
I have had. My goodness, I have had. I think encountering difficult situations does a lot of things for you. It lets you grow. It kind of determines what you're made of and what you can do. It also determines who your true friends are. And I actually have faced, personally, a fair amount of significant adversity. I talked about the Arthur Andersen thing. Well, here we have, for those of you who don't realize, Arthur Andersen was the greatest firm there ever was. So just my humble opinion. But nonetheless, so we went from being a very successful professional public accounting firm with a AAA credit rating, so we did very well, to being out of business almost overnight. When I say overnight, it happened essentially in a, we're in a business of public trust. When you're being accused of a crime that violates that trust, public company clients can't stay with you. So we went from that to this overnight. And, I was kind of in the middle of that, dealing with that. And that was, it's one of those situations where you can't look it up in the book, right? You don't know, what does tomorrow bring? What's going to happen? The government was attacking us. Congress was attacking us. Lawyers were attacking us. And our people, didn't know, you had to give them hope. You had to give them direction. You had to take care of them. You had to do all kinds of things. That was the most incredible adverse situation I ever faced. And I, it's funny, it's that people, how do you do it? Well, you do it like everything else. You draw upon whatever you've learned and done, and you get through it. And then I was at Sallie Mae, and I actually faced a very adverse situation there. We decided, our board decided that we could go through a private equity leveraged buyout. And we were a highly leveraged financial institution to begin with, and we borrowed unsecured money basically at government treasury rates. And so we went overnight from that environment to not having that safety net. And guess what? We did this. So we probably never should have been trying to do that. And we did it. We got 2/3 of the way through it when the financial crisis hit in 2008. And that created complete disaster. We were, it was touch and go, is how you mean. And you had to, again, we had 12,000 employees. And we had to convince them they had a future and that we could fix it, but it was very difficult. But I drew upon my Arthur Andersen experience. Had I not had that, I think the chaos that comes with those kinds of things is very difficult. But the point is, not everybody will experience things like that, but you will experience, everybody's going to experience a significant dose of adversity multiple times in different ways. And I certainly had it earlier in my career as well. But you draw upon, and the thing that fascinated me with hindsight, it really brings out you get in a tough situation, it brings out true colors in people. And we're all flawed. But the people that you thought would be there to have your back, to stand tall, some of them ran the other way. And some of the least suspecting people, that maybe weren't the flashy people or whatever, suddenly rose up and had strong convictions and strong moral convictions and things and rose up. So you really determine, the true colors of people when you get in adverse situations.
Hi, I was wondering if in college, did you ever see yourself being where you are today?
Well, that's an interesting question. Answer is no, but I come from a different background, so it doesn't mean you shouldn't see that way. I was from a small town in Southern Virginia. I'd never been on an airplane, and I came to work in Washington D.C. And I had my parents didn't want me to do it, whatever. I just wanted to go try it, right? So mine was more, that first decision without having any idea where I was going. But and I think it's important. It's important to have goals, and it's important to see out into the future a bit. But I really don't think it's a good idea to set goals that are 30 years out or 20 years out. I think you need to have goals in shorter term increments, and as you kind of move up here, you extend them out, that sort of thing. So I don't think you necessarily want to set outcomes, right? I say set more goals to develop, to learn, to grow. If you do that, people will be attracted to you. You'll get responsibility. You'll get opportunities. You'll get this. And these other things evolve, as opposed to sitting down and saying, in 3 years I want to be this, 6 years I want to be this, 10 years that. I think those things are kind of artificial milestones. They're outcomes that will occur if you do the other things well. So to answer your question, no, certainly not. You get to a point in time in your career, you see that as a possibility, but it never started out that way.
Hi, my name is Mark Bruno. I was wondering, since you stayed with one company for so long in your career, do you think that served you well as opposed to others who may have switched around to different companies?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I would say, I think when I started, that was more common to do that than it is today. First of all, it's not nearly as common today for all kinds of reasons. But even as I look back on that, it wasn't even that common then, because you sit there and if you think about public accounting and the kind of the ratios of things, only some small percentage of the people that start are going to become a partner and stay with that firm, or you take any of the firms. There are lots of reasons why that happens. Some leave to go do other opportunities. Some kind of hit the wall and aren't performing and leave. All kinds of different reasons. So I think, well, I certainly didn't go into that thinking I would be there for 30 years. I mean, that's kind of the way it happened. And I think it's more often than not the rule today that people are much more mobile. I would say the flip side, that companies are much less loyal. Loyal in a sense. I think companies are loyal to the people when things are going well, but companies are much more prone to do cost management and things like that. I mean, you look at this recession, people, the drop of the hat will cut workforce. They'll cut it beyond what it should be cut, because then they get a lower run rate of their costs. So companies aren't really that loyal. So there used to be that loyalty factor. It was much different than it is today. So I encourage people to grow and seek what they want to do and to continue growth. And if you get that where you are, fine, stay there. If not, go somewhere else. And I just think you just need to have your eyes open and do what's right for you and try to develop and grow. And if that leads you somewhere else, so be it. And even in this public accounting world, I tell people, look, everybody, and I used to say this at Arthur Andersen, everybody here will leave this firm. It's just a question of when. Some might leave next year, some might leave in 5 years, some might 10, some 20, some when they retire, right? Everybody's going to leave. There's nothing wrong with that. They're going to go do something else. And that's the way the world is. So you should be, make yourself as comfortable as you can with change. Change is good, and embrace change, and sometimes change leads you to switches in careers. So you shouldn't be ashamed of that. It's a good thing. People don't frown upon it, and it's very common today. Be careful not to do it too often, because there's the flip side of that. That you're looking at, hey, this guy looks very talented, but he's had 6 jobs in 6 years. There's something that's not the kind of guy we want. That doesn't sound like a teammate. Sounds like a free agent. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Diane Yimba. I like the fact that you say we're supposed to use mentors, but I have a question. What are ways to identify good mentors, especially in a company where you don't know anybody and you just started a full-time position?
Yeah, that's a good question, because, yeah, it sounds like it's the right thing to do, but how do you do it? I think some mentors will become natural and obvious to you because you'll work with people that are maybe your supervisor on an engagement, or somebody you've been introduced to, or it might be somebody that recruited you to the firm. So some of those things kind of naturally happen, and if they do, follow them. The second thing I would do is, if you're in an organization of some size, I would inquire. I would inquire of people around you, people above you, for suggestions. After you know enough about where you are to know the kinds of things that you really want to have conversation about and do things, and people will help you do it. So I think some of them will happen naturally. Some you probe once you have a better understanding of what you think your needs are, and you figure out who it is. And I also very much encourage having mentors outside of work, because a lot of times mentoring is not just about kind of the technical things or what relates to that company. It's about other forms of growth. It's about personal life. It's about relationships. It's about any number of things. So it's good to have people that a person or persons that can be your mentors outside of work. And I think in some respects those occur much more naturally. So some will occur to you, be obvious to you, and then you can network and help identify others. And most bigger companies will help you anyway. They'll initiate that because they want you to have a mentor. They might even assign you a mentor when you start. Try to make the best guess they can until you know enough to pick your own. That's what most organizations will try to do. One more? Okay.
Hi. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, of course, have been in the news quite a bit, even though it's probably comparing apples and oranges with Sallie Mae. I'm wondering, what suggestions would you have to correct the problems in those agencies? And do you think they should even exist, as some say they should just be folded? Yeah,
well, that's an interesting question. They were at one point similar to Sallie Mae, but Sallie Mae actually voluntarily moved out of the government-sponsored enterprise program, which is what Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are. I actually spent a fair amount of time at Freddie Mac over the years and know those businesses reasonably well, although they've changed a lot. I would say this. I think they are a creation. We created them, right? The government, we created them to facilitate the mortgage market. And the mortgage market is so dependent upon them that it's hard to extract them. My opinion is that we should find the path to extract them in an orderly way, as orderly a way as we can, and get them out of that business, is my opinion. Now, I don't think that'll ever happen, because I think there are too many political commitments to it. There's so much kind of our housing and social engineering that works through it. So it's a hard thing to unwind. But I think it's, with hindsight, it's probably a mistake we ever did it. The whole thing about the importance of home ownership, I think, is flawed in my opinion. I don't know why everyone needs to own a home. I don't know why it's not all right to rent space, things like that. And let it fall on its merits, and let the marketplace provide financing for what's justified. So I wish they didn't exist. I wish we could find a way out of it. I doubt that we will. But even if we don't, we should diminish, I think, their role in housing policy and other things, and to be used, quite in fairness, defense of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, to be used as political instruments, because that's what they've been used as political instruments without their real control or say. But it's complicated, and that's a mess. There's a lot of money at stake there, a lot of money. You talk about highly leveraged financial institutions. In their heyday, their leverage was off the charts. I thought my leverage at Sallie Mae was, they were many multiples of that. I mean, it just didn't make sense, didn't make business sense. They weren't capitalized to sustain the business they were doing. They were insurance companies for the entire mortgage market. That's what they were, with no capital. Except our capital, yours and mine. That's the capital they had, the taxpayers. Is that it? All right. Okay.